We've looked at discrete time systems in quite a general form. We've looked at their properties and characteristics. And what we'll do now is zoom into a specific subclass of discrete time systems called linear time invariant systems. Before we get into that, I briefly just want to recap what it means for a discrete system to be linear and for a discrete system to be time invariant. This is just what we've seen before. The important thing here is that linear systems obey the principle of superposition. And that basically just means that if you have a signal plus some other signal, both of them scaled, then that, and you pass that kind of added weighted signal through some system, then that is the same as first passing one signal through and then scaling it, and then passing the other signal through and then scaling it. And if that holds, if that's true, then we have a linear system. You can represent it graphically by saying, I take a signal, I scale it, I take another signal, scale it, add them up, pass them through the transform, and get the output. And if the system is linear, that's the same as taking the one signal, passing it through the system, scaling it, the other signal, passing it through the system, scaling it, adding them up, and getting the output. And if this is true, then it actually follows that in general, for such a system, for a linear system, that if I add up a whole bunch of signals, each of them weighed by some alpha, if I add all of that up and I pass that through the system, that's the same as taking each of the individual signals, passing those through the systems, weighing each of them, and then adding that up. So that's linear systems. Time invariant systems are systems where, let's suppose I apply some input to the system and I get an output y. If instead of using this input, I delay that input with k samples, okay, then if the system is time invariant, the output that I get here should be the same as the output I got here. It should just also be delayed by the same amount. Okay, if that's true, then this is a time invariant system. So in the little example, you can go and watch the video again. The little example is actually of a time variant system. But if you have this input and you get the output here, if the system was time invariant and you delayed this output by, for example, 3 samples, then what you would have received as the output of the system would be this thing, but just delayed by 3. So you would basically start 0, 1, 2, 3. Turns out for this example, you actually don't get that, and that's because this example is a time variant system. Okay, we need this because we're looking at linear time invariant systems. So you need to know what time invariance is, and you need to know what linear means. Linear time invariant systems are very, very nice because it allows us to design things in a principled way. And it has some very, very nice properties that we can use in order to design discrete systems. And what I will do is I will start to prove one of the most important properties for linear time invariant systems. And maybe I'll just spoil the story by actually telling you what we're going to prove. What we are going to prove is that if you have a system that's linear, time invariant, discrete system specifically, then if you feed that system with some input x, and you pass that through the system, and then you get some output y. If we have an LTI system, linear time invariant system, then the output y will be equal to the input convolved with the impulse response of that system. Okay, what's the impulse response? The impulse response is basically what you get out of the system if you feed this with the impulse. Okay, so every system has an impulse response. If the system is linear time invariant, then we can use this equation which says that the output is the convolution of the input with the impulse response of that system. This is super nice because that means we can just we can characterize any discrete system if we know its impulse response. And that's the impulse response is the only thing that you need. And if you know that, then you can characterize the system and you can go on with life. This doesn't hold for all systems. It doesn't hold for all discrete time systems. It holds specifically for linear time invariant systems. This is also, if you've done a continuous signal processing course, for continuous linear time invariant systems, this equation also holds, except that here you've got time and time and time, and convolution in a continuous domain is defined differently from the discrete domain. Okay, So the aim of the game for this little bit is to prove that for a linear time invariant system, this is true. Where we will start is this kind of idea, which is, it's almost so simple that it sometimes gets lost a little bit. Any discrete signal can be written as the sum of a whole bunch of impulses. I'll just write out the equation and then I'll draw a picture which hopefully illustrates it. It's a sum of a whole bunch of impulses, okay? Each one with a different delay or at an advance. If I is negative, then you've got an advance. Each of them weighed by the value of the signal that corresponds to this impulse. This looks really weird, so you need to stare at this for a second and make sure that you get what it's saying. I'll help a little bit by just drawing out a little example. And I realize it looks strange, but the reason is this will allow us to prove this thing for linear time invariant systems. Importantly, this holds for any discrete signal. Any discrete signal, you can decompose it into a sum of impulses. Okay, so let's just think about like a little silly example. Let's say I have a signal xn that looks like this. It's basically 0 everywhere, except at -1, it has the value, let's just say 1. And then at 0, it has the value -0.5. And then at 1, it has the value, let's just say, that's 1.5. Okay? And then it's 0, 0, 0. And here it's 0, 0, 0. This equation says is that we can actually break up the signal into, in this case, into 3 little impulses sitting there, there, and there, and then you add them up and you get back to the signal. So with the danger of insulting your intelligence, I'll quickly draw this out. I'm adding up 3 little impulses. The first one has a 0, then a 1 there, and then 0, 0, 0, 0, and so on, up until the basically end of time. The second one is 0, 0, 0, and then here you have a -0.5, and then 0, 0, 0, up until the end of time. And then the last one is 0, it's zeros everywhere, and then at 1 you have this little 1.5, and then 0, 0, 0. Again, now what you need to see is if I add all of this up, I get this, okay? And what is this thing? This is just the impulse that's 1 early, basically. It's 1 before 0. So that's delta n plus 1. This one is just a normal impulse, okay? Except it has a weight of -0.5 at that point. This one also has a weight, it's just 1. Okay, and then here we've got a 1.5, and this is an impulse that's been delayed by 1. Okay, and if you add all of these up, you get this. Mathematically, you have this plus this plus this, which for this signal will equal that. And then in general, you have this equation here at the top that for any signal, you can basically break them up into little impulses. Okay, now why the fudge did I tell you this? Let's see how this helps us to see what linear time invariant discrete systems do to a discrete signal. Okay, so we start with discrete systems in general. So for any discrete system on Earth, we can represent them by saying that we have some output that we get based on some transform that we do to some input. Okay, so this is for any discrete system. And what we've just seen is that that input can be represented as a little sum. Okay, and in general, we will start at -infinity, we will end at infinity, and we will have the weights from our signal with the impulses. Just want to pause here again and just make you see here that what we're really doing is we're basically stopping thinking of x as a function of n. It's just some weight now that we attach it. You could have just written alpha I, okay? Where alpha I is x at I, but you almost think of the signal as not being a signal anymore. It's just some numbers now. And instead, the function, the thing that's actually dependent on discrete time, is now the impulses, the deltas. Okay, I hope that makes sense. It's like here, we just think of 1, 0.5, 1.5, and really the time dependence comes in with the delta functions that we have there, the impulses. Okay, important thing, this holds for any discrete system, for any discrete signal. Now we make our first assumption. We assume that the system, represented by that squiggly t, is linear. Now what we've seen before is that if a system is linear, it needs to basically obey the principle of superposition. And what superposition says is that if I'm going to transform some signals, okay, and what I do is I want to basically transform them, pass them through the systems. I've passed them through the system, and I'm adding up a ton of different signals like these, each of them weighted by some weight. Then for a linear system, that is the same as first passing each of the signals through on their own and then weighing them. Okay, this comes from the previous videos. Okay, so go and recap that and make sure that you can see the little step that I'm going to write down now. So for a linear system, if the system is linear, what I can do is I can basically take this squiggly t inside. These are just some numbers. 1, minus 0.5, 1.5. I can take the 1 minus 0.5, the 1.5 out. And then I can just apply the system to each of the impulses on their own. Okay, so this means that for a linear system, we end up with a little equation that looks like this. I take out my alphas, my weights that I'm assigning here. And then what I do is I apply the system to each of the impulses. So this is if the system is linear. Okay, so this is for all linear discrete systems. This holds. Okay. Next step. It's in the name. We will now assume that the system is time invariant. Okay. And what you should remember from time invariance is that if I have a system, squiggly t, and I apply some signal, okay, and I get an output. If I then take that same signal and delay it, then the output should be the delayed version of the output that I got in the first place. So let me write that down a little bit mathematically. Let's say we take our system and we just apply a single impulse to the input. Okay, so we feed a single impulse to that input. And let's just call the output h of n. If my system is time invariant, then that means if I take my impulse and I delay it by I samples, then what should that be? Just think about it for a second. That should then be h n minus I. Okay, so a time invariant system, if I apply some input and I get an output, if I then delay that input, then the output that I get out should be just the delayed version of the original output that I got. That's the definition of a time invariant system. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're taking this equation here and we're sticking it in here. Okay, and so what we then get is that this is for an LTI system. For an LTI system, y of n, the output of my system, is equal to I going from minus infinity to infinity of xi times, and this is the impulse response of that system if the impulse is delayed by I samples. And if the system is time invariant, that is the same as the output that I would have gotten from just a single impulse, but also just delayed by I. Okay, and this equation, if you go back to the definition of discrete convolution, is actually xn convolved with hn. It's actually pretty simple, but quite profound. And what we've proven is really just this, okay? That's true for any linear time invariant system. So if I know the impulse response, this h of n, what is h of n? Just as a reminder, it's the output that I get if I feed this thing with the impulse. Okay, so if I feed it with a single impulse, 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0, I get some output. That's the impulse response. And if I have that, okay, then I can basically apply this system to any new input. In the demo that I will put in a next video, I will show you, for instance, what you can do is, if I want to simulate what a room sounds like, okay, what a room sounds like, the acoustics of a room, I can go into that room and fire a loud cracker. That's approximating basically an impulse, boom. Then I record what happens as a response to that impulse, okay? I record that, and the thing I'm recording is h of n. Then if I have a new song that I want to listen to, but I want to make it sound as though that song is being played in that room, What I then do is I take my h of n that I recorded as a response to the cracker. I feed in the new song. I calculate the convolution using Python or MATLAB or whatever. And the output that I get here would then be as though I listened to that song in that room. Pretty awesome.